The blizzard howled like a vengeful beast, tearing through the quiet streets of Burlington, Vermont, as if it meant to swallow the world whole. Emily Carter, barely 21, stood trembling on the icy porch of her childhood home, her breath visible in the freezing air. The door had just slammed shut behind her, her mother's final words, "You're no daughter of mine," still ringing in her ears. Snow stung her face as she clutched her backpack, the only thing she'd managed to grab before being shoved out into the storm. Her worn leather jacket did little to shield her from the biting wind, and her sneakers were already soaked through. She wasn't just cold. She was terrified. This wasn't how she'd imagined coming out to her family. She'd hoped for understanding, maybe even reluctant acceptance. Instead, she'd been met with rage. Her father's face contorted with disgust, her mother's tears turning to venom. And now, here she was, cast out into a night that felt as unforgiving as their rejection. Emily stumbled down the steps, her legs shaky, her heart pounding. She didn't know where to go. The town she'd grown up in, with its cozy coffee shops and tree-lined streets, suddenly felt alien, its warmth reserved for everyone but her. She thought of Sarah, her girlfriend, who was waiting for her at their secret spot by Lake Champlain. Sarah, with her quiet strength and warm smile, was the only person who made Emily feel like she belonged. But Sarah was miles away, and Emily had no car, no phone. Her parents had taken it, claiming it was theirs since they'd paid for it. The snow was coming down harder now, piling up on the sidewalks, turning the world into a blurry white haze. Emily's teeth chattered as she trudged forward, her mind racing. She'd known coming out would be hard. Her parents were devout, their church a cornerstone of their lives, but she hadn't expected this. Not this level of betrayal. Not being thrown out into a blizzard with nothing but the clothes on her back. She could still hear her father's voice, low and cold. "You're an abomination. You're not welcome here." Her feet sank deeper into the snow with every step, and her fingers were starting to go numb. She needed to find shelter. But where? The nearest gas station was a mile away, and the thought of walking that far in this storm made her chest tighten with panic. She could try to make it to Sarah's apartment, but Sarah lived on the other side of town, and Emily wasn't sure she could survive the trek. The wind whipped her hair into her face, and she blinked back tears that froze on her lashes. She wasn't crying for herself, not yet. She was crying for the life she'd thought she could have, the one where her family might still love her. As she reached the end of her street, headlights cut through the storm. A car slowed beside her, and for a moment, hope flared in her chest. Maybe someone had seen her. Maybe they'd help. But when the window rolled down, it was her older brother, Mark, his face a mask of conflicted emotions. Get in," he said, his voice tight. "You can't stay out here." Emily hesitated. Mark hadn't been in the room when her parents kicked her out, but he hadn't defended her either. He'd always been the golden child, the one who followed their parents' rules, who never questioned their rigid beliefs. Could she trust him? She didn't have much choice. The cold was seeping into her bones, and she was starting to feel dizzy. She climbed into the passenger seat, her body shivering uncontrollably. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mark didn't look at her. "Somewhere safe," he said, but there was something in his tone that made her stomach twist. She wanted to believe him, wanted to think he was different from their parents, but the way his hands gripped the steering wheel, the way his jaw clenched, told her otherwise. He wasn't taking her to Sarah. He wasn't taking her to a shelter. He was taking her somewhere else, somewhere she wasn't sure she wanted to go. The car turned onto the main road. the headlights illuminating the swirling snow. Emily's heart sank as she realized they were heading toward the church. Her parents' church, where Pastor Reynolds preached fire and brimstone, where she'd spent her childhood memorizing verses about sin and redemption. She'd always felt out of place there, like she was wearing a mask that never quite fit. And now, she was being dragged back to the one place she'd tried so hard to escape. "Mark, please," she said, her voice breaking. "Don't do this." He didn't answer. The silence between them was heavier than the storm outside. Emily's mind raced, searching for a way out. But her body was too cold, too tired. She thought of Sarah again, of the way she'd kissed her under the stars by the lake, promising they'd face the world together. That promise felt so far away now, like a dream she could barely hold on to. As the church's steeple came into view, looming through the snow, Emily's fear turned to dread. She didn't know what awaited her inside, but she knew it wouldn't be forgiveness. Her family wasn't just rejecting her, they were trying to erase her. And in that moment, she realized that surviving the blizzard might be the least of her battles. The church's parking lot was nearly empty, the snow piling up around the few cars left behind. Emily's heart pounded as Mark pulled into a spot near the entrance, the neon cross glowing faintly through the storm. She wanted to bolt, to throw open the car door and run. But her body felt heavy, her limbs sluggish from the cold. "Mark, what are we doing here?" she asked, her voice trembling. She hated how small she sounded, how fear had stripped away the defiance she'd clung to earlier. He finally looked at her, his eyes a mix of guilt and resolve. "Pastor Reynolds wants to talk to you. Mom and Dad they think he can help you." "Help me?" Emily's voice cracked, anger flaring through her fear. "You mean fix me? Like I'm broken?" Mark's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He opened his door, letting a gust of icy air into the car. "Just come inside. It's warm. You'll freeze out here." She followed him, not because she wanted to, but because the alternative was staying in the car, alone, with nowhere else to go. The church doors creaked as they stepped inside, the familiar smell of polished wood and candle wax hitting her like a wave of memories. Sunday mornings spent in stiff dresses, her mother's proud smile when she recited Bible verses perfectly, her father's approving nod. It all felt like a lifetime ago. Pastor Reynolds was waiting in the sanctuary, his tall frame silhouetted against the stained glass windows. He was in his 50s, with graying hair and a stern face that softened only when he spoke of salvation. Emily had always been wary of him, his sermons laced with warnings about the sins of the world. Now, he looked at her with a pity that made her skin crawl. "Emily," he said, his voice smooth but heavy with judgment. "Your parents are worried about you. They love you, but they can't condone this lifestyle you've chosen." "It's not a choice," she snapped, surprising herself with the force of her words. "This is who I am." The pastor's eyes narrowed, but he kept his tone calm. "The Bible is clear. Emily, you're lost, but you can be found. We're here to guide you back to God's path." Emily's hands clenched into fists. She wanted to scream, to tell him he was wrong. That love wasn't a sin. That Sarah was the best thing in her life. But the weight of the room, the pews, the cross, the memories of her parents' devotion pressed down on her, making her feel small again. Mark stood silently by the door, his face unreadable. Emily wondered if he believed this too, if he thought she needed saving. The thought made her chest ache. He'd been her protector once, her big brother who'd sneak her extra cookies when their parents weren't looking. Now, he was complicit in this ambush. Pastor Reynolds gestured to a chair. Sit. Let's talk. We can pray together. Ask for God's guidance. I don't need your prayers, Emily said, her voice shaking but firm. I need my family to accept me. They will, he said, his tone almost gentle. If you repent, if you let go of this confusion. The word hit her like a slap. Confusion. As if her love for Sarah was a mistake. A glitch to be corrected. She thought of Sarah's laugh. The way her dark hair fell over her eyes when she was nervous. The way she'd held Emily's hand and promised they'd build a life together. That wasn't confusion. That was clarity. The only thing in Emily's life that made sense. I'm not confused, she said, standing taller. And I'm not staying here. She turned to leave, but Mark stepped in front of the door, his expression torn. Please. Just listen to him. For Mom and Dad. For them. She said, her voice rising. What about me? Do you even care what I'm going through? Mark's eyes flickered with something guilt. Maybe, but he didn't move. Pastor Reynolds stepped closer, his voice dropping to a warning. Emily, running from this won't help. Your parents have already contacted the authorities. They're worried you're a danger to yourself. Her blood ran cold. The authorities? What are you talking about? They think you're unstable, he said, his words measured. They're considering legal action to protect you. A psychiatric evaluation. Perhaps. Emily's knees buckled, and she grabbed the back of a pew for support. Her own parents were trying to have her committed. For being in love. The room spun, the weight of their betrayal crushing her. She'd known they were strict. But this was something else. This was cruelty. I'm not crazy, she whispered, more to herself than to them. I'm not. Then prove it, Pastor Reynolds said. Stay. Let us help you. She looked at Mark, searching for the brother she used to know. But his silence was answer enough. She was alone in this. The church. Her family. The life she'd known, they were all slipping away. Replaced by a nightmare she couldn't wake from. I'm leaving, she said, pushing past Mark. He grabbed her arm. But she yanked it free. Her eyes blazing. Don't touch me. She stumbled back into the storm. The cold hitting her like a wall. The blizzard hadn't let up. And neither had her resolve. She didn't know where she was going. But she knew she couldn't stay here. Not with people who saw her as a problem to be fixed. She thought of Sarah again. Her anchor in this chaos. If she could just get to her. Maybe she could breathe again. As she trudged through the snow. The church fading into the white haze behind her. Emily's mind raced. Her parents were trying to lock her away. To erase who she was. She couldn't let them win. Not now. Not ever. But the storm was relentless. And her strength was fading. She needed a plan. A way to survive this night and the fight that was coming. The snow was blinding now. A curtain of white that erased the world beyond a few feet. Emily's legs burned with every step. Her sneakers heavy with ice. She'd been walking for what felt like hours. Though it couldn't have been more than 20 minutes since she'd left the church. Her breath came in ragged gasps. And her fingers were so numb she could barely feel them. But she kept moving. Driven by the image of Sarah's face. The promise of safety in her arms. Burlington's streets were deserted. The storm keeping even the most stubborn locals indoors. Emily's mind churned with questions. How could her parents do this? How could they think locking her up was love? She'd always known their faith was strict. But this was betrayal on a level she couldn't comprehend. And Mark, her brother. Her ally had stood by and let it happen. The thought made her chest ache. A pain sharper than the cold. She needed to get to Sarah's apartment. But it was still miles away. And the storm was worsening. Her vision blurred. Whether from snow or tears. She couldn't tell. She stumbled past a gas station. Its lights dimmed through the blizzard. The clerk inside glanced at her but didn't move. She didn't blame him. She must have looked like a ghost. Half frozen and wild-eyed. Her thoughts drifted to the first time she'd met Sarah. 6 months ago at a community college art class. Sarah had been sketching in the corner. Her dark hair falling over her sketchpad. Her quiet intensity drawing Emily in like a magnet. They talked for hours that night. Sharing stories of their dreams. Their fears. Their lives. Sarah had been open about her sexuality. Her confidence giving Emily the courage to admit her own feelings. It was the first time Emily had felt truly seen. Truly understood. With Sarah. She wasn't the pastor's daughter or the perfect student. She was just Emily. And that was enough. Now, that memory was all she had to keep her going. She pulled her jacket tighter. Though it did little against the wind. Her destination was a small diner on the edge of town. A place she and Sarah had gone to late at night when they needed to escape. It was closer than Sarah's apartment. And maybe, just maybe, Sarah would be there. They joked about it being their safe haven. A place where no one judged them. Where they could steal kisses over greasy fries. If Sarah wasn't there, Emily could at least get warm. Figure out her next move. The diner's neon sign flickered into view. A beacon in the storm. Emily's heart lifted as she pushed through the door. The bell jingling weakly. The warmth hit her like a wave. And she nearly collapsed with relief. The place was nearly empty. Just a tired waitress wiping down the counter and an old man nursing a coffee in the corner. Rough night. Hon? The waitress asked. Her voice kind but weary. Emily nodded. Too cold to speak. She slid into a booth. Her hands shaking as she tried to rub warmth back into them. The waitress brought her a mug of coffee without asking. And Emily wrapped her fingers around it. Grateful for the heat. She glanced at the door. Hoping. Praying Sarah would walk in. But the minutes ticked by. And the door stayed shut. Her mind raced. She couldn't stay here forever. Her parents had already threatened legal action. What if they'd called the police already? What if they were looking for her? The thought made her stomach churn. She wasn't a criminal. But the way Pastor Reynolds had talked, the way Mark had avoided her eyes, made her feel like one. She pulled a napkin from the dispenser and scribbled a note. Her handwriting shaky. Sarah. I'm at the diner. Need you. She didn't have her phone. But maybe she could convince the waitress to let her use the diner's phone to call Sarah. She was about to ask when the door jingled. And her heart stopped. It wasn't Sarah. It was a police officer. His uniform dusted with snow. He scanned the room. His eyes landing on Emily. Her pulse raced as he approached. His expression unreadable. Emily Carter? He asked. His voice calm but firm. She nodded. Her throat dry. Yes. Your parents are worried about you, he said, pulling out a notepad. They say you ran off into the storm. They're claiming you're not in your right mind. Emily's heart sank. It was happening. Her parents weren't just kicking her out, they were trying to control her. To lock her away. She thought of Sarah. Of the life they dreamed of. And something inside her hardened. She wasn't going to let them take that from her. I'm fine, she said. Her voice steadier than she felt. I just need to get to my friend's place. The officer studied her. His eyes softening slightly. Look, kid. It's a bad night to be out. Let me give you a ride somewhere safe. Your parents mentioned a church program. No. Emily cut him off, her voice sharp. I'm not going back there. He raised an eyebrow but didn't push. All right. Where do you want to go? She hesitated. Could she trust him? She didn't have much choice. My friend's apartment, she said finally. On Elm Street. He nodded, jotting something down. Let's get you there. Then. But you need to call your parents. Let them know you're okay. They're talking about filing a report. Emily's stomach twisted, but she nodded. She'd call them, but not to reassure them. She'd call to tell them she wasn't giving up. Not on herself. Not on Sarah. Not on the life she deserved. As she followed the officer out into the storm, the warmth of the diner fading behind her, Emily felt a spark of hope. She was still standing, still fighting. And somewhere out there, Sarah was waiting. The police cruiser's heater blasted warm air. But Emily still shivered, her damp clothes clinging to her skin. The officer, whose name tag read Officer Daniels, drove slowly through the snow-covered streets, the wipers struggling to keep up with the blizzard. Emily sat in the back, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her mind a tangle of fear and determination. She was heading to Sarah's apartment, but the weight of her parents' actions pressed down on her. They weren't just rejecting her, they were trying to erase her identity, to lock her away for loving who she loved. You okay back there? Officer Daniels asked, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. Emily nodded, though she wasn't sure she was. Thanks for the ride, she said quietly. He gave a small nod. Your parents sound intense. I've seen this kind of thing before. Families don't always handle it well when someone comes out. She looked at him, surprised by the empathy in his voice. You've seen this before. More than you'd think, he said, his tone matter of fact. My sister's gay. Took my parents a while to come around, but they did. Eventually. Emily's throat tightened. She wanted to believe her parents could change, but the memory of her mother's rage, her father's cold dismissal, made it hard to hope. Mine won't, she said softly. They think I'm wrong. Daniels didn't respond right away, just kept driving, the snow crunching under the tires. Give it time, he said finally. And find people who've got your back. That's what matters. Emily thought of Sarah, her heart aching with the need to see her. Sarah was her rock, the one person who saw her for who she was and loved her anyway. If she could just get to her, maybe she could figure out how to fight this. The cruiser pulled up to a small brick apartment building on Elm Street, its windows glowing faintly through the storm. Emily's heart leaped. She was so close. This is it, she said, her voice trembling with relief. Daniels turned to her. I need you to call your parents when you get inside. Let them know you're safe. If you don't, they might escalate things. Emily nodded, though the thought of talking to them made her stomach churn. I will. She stepped out into the snow, the cold hitting her again. But this time it didn't feel as overwhelming. She was almost there. She thanked Daniels and hurried to the building's entrance, her fingers fumbling with the buzzer for Sarah's apartment. The seconds stretched on, each one heavier than the last, until finally, a voice crackled through the speaker. Em, is that you? Sarah's voice was like a lifeline, pulling Emily out of the storm. It's me, she said, her voice breaking. Please, let me in. The door buzzed, and Emily pushed through, climbing the stairs 2 at a time. When she reached Sarah's apartment, the door was already open, and Sarah was there, her dark hair messy, her eyes wide with worry. She pulled Emily into a hug, and for the first time that night, Emily felt safe. "Oh my God, you're freezing," Sarah said, pulling her inside and shutting the door. She grabbed a blanket from the couch and wrapped it around Emily, her hands moving quickly, almost frantically. "What happened? I've been texting you, but you didn't answer." Emily's teeth chattered as she tried to speak. "They took my phone. They kicked me out." Sarah's face fell, her eyes filling with a mix of anger and pain. "Because of us." Emily nodded, tears spilling over. "They called me an abomination. They took me to the church, said I needed to be fixed. And now they're saying I'm unstable, that they might have me committed." Sarah's jaw dropped, her hands tightening on Emily's shoulders. "They can't do that. They can't." "They're trying," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They called the police. That's how I got here. An officer drove me." Sarah pulled her close again, her warmth seeping into Emily's cold skin. "You're safe now. We'll figure this out. Together." Emily buried her face in Sarah's shoulder, letting the tears come. For the first time that night, she didn't feel alone. But even as Sarah held her, the reality of her situation loomed large. Her parents weren't going to stop. They'd already taken her home, her phone, her sense of security. What else would they take? Sarah led her to the couch, wrapping her in another blanket and handing her a mug of tea. "Tell me everything," she said, her voice firm but gentle. Emily recounted the night, the argument, the blizzard, the church, the officer. Sarah listened, her expression shifting from shock to fury to determination. When Emily finished, Sarah took her hand, her grip strong. "They're not going to win," Sarah said. "We'll fight this. I know people, a lawyer, some friends at the community center. We'll get you help." Emily wanted to believe her, but fear gnawed at her. What if they find me? What if they actually get me locked up? "They won't," Sarah said fiercely. "I won't let them. You're not alone in this. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." For the first time that night, Emily felt a flicker of hope. She squeezed Sarah's hand, drawing strength from her. The storm outside was still raging, but in this small apartment, with Sarah by her side, Emily felt like she could face anything, even her own family. The dim light of Sarah's apartment cast soft shadows on the walls, a stark contrast to the chaos of the night. Emily sat curled up on the couch, the blanket still wrapped around her, the mug of tea warming her hands. Sarah sat beside her, her presence a steady anchor in the storm of Emily's emotions. But even here, in this safe haven, the weight of her parents' betrayal lingered, heavy and suffocating. "We need a plan," Sarah said, her voice calm but resolute. "Your parents aren't going to stop, and we can't let them control the narrative." Emily nodded, though her mind was still reeling. "I don't even know where to start. They've got money, connections, the church. I'm just me." "You're not just anything," Sarah said, her eyes fierce. "You're strong, and you're not alone. We've got options." Sarah stood, grabbing her laptop from the coffee table. She opened it and started typing, her fingers moving quickly. "There's a community center downtown that helps people in situations like this. They've got legal resources, support groups, even temporary housing if we need it." Emily's heart lifted slightly. She'd heard of the Center Burlington's LGBTQ+ hub, a place where people like her could find acceptance. She'd never been, too afraid of being seen, of word getting back to her parents. But now, with nowhere else to go, it felt like her only lifeline. What about the police? Emily asked, her voice small. That officer said they might file a report. Sarah's jaw tightened. They can try, but they don't have a case. You're an adult. They can't just lock you up because they don't like who you love. We'll talk to a lawyer. Make sure they know you're not a danger to anyone. Emily wanted to believe her, but the fear was still there, gnawing at her. She thought of her parents' faces, the way they'd looked at her like she was a stranger. She thought of Mark, standing silently as Pastor Reynolds tried to fix her. The betrayal cut deeper than the cold ever could. Sarah's phone buzzed on the table, and she glanced at it, her expression darkening. It's a text from your brother. Emily's stomach dropped. What does it say? Sarah read aloud, her voice tight. Please come home. Mom and Dad are freaking out. They just want what's best for you. Emily laughed, a bitter sound that surprised even her. What's best for me? They threw me out into a blizzard. They're trying to have me committed. Sarah's eyes softened, and she reached for Emily's hand. He's probably just parroting what they're telling him. But we need to be careful. If they're texting me, they know you're here. Emily's heart raced. What do we do? First, we don't respond, Sarah said. Not yet. We need to get you somewhere safe. Somewhere they can't find you. The community center might have a shelter. Or we can crash with my friend Mia. She's got a spare room, and she's been through something similar. Emily nodded, grateful for Sarah's clarity, her strength. She felt like she was drowning, but Sarah was her lifeline, pulling her back to the surface. Okay, she said. Let's go to the center. Sarah smiled. Small, determined curve of her lips. Good. We'll head there first thing in the morning. The storm's too bad to go now, and you need rest. Emily didn't argue. Her body ached, her mind exhausted from the night's events. Sarah led her to the bedroom, pulling out a pair of sweatpants and a hoodie. Put these on. You need to warm up. As Emily changed, her eyes caught on a photo on Sarah's nightstand, a picture of them at Lake Champlain, laughing under the summer sun. Felt like a lifetime ago, a moment when the world had seemed full of possibility. Now, that possibility felt fragile, threatened by the people who were supposed to love her most. She crawled into bed, Sarah sliding in beside her. The warmth of Sarah's body, the steady rhythm of her breathing, was enough to quiet the storm in Emily's mind, at least for a moment. She closed her eyes, letting herself believe, just for tonight, that everything would be okay. But sleep didn't come easily. Her mind kept replaying the night, the argument, the church, the officer's words. She thought of her parents, sitting in their warm house, planning their next move. She thought of Mark, torn between loyalty to them and whatever love he still had for her. And she thought of Sarah, who'd promised to fight with her, no matter what. When morning came, the storm had calmed, leaving a blanket of snow over the city. Emily and Sarah dressed quickly, grabbing what little they could carry. The community center was only a few miles away, but every step felt like a leap into the unknown. As they stepped outside, the cold air hit Emily's face. But this time, she didn't flinch. She had Sarah, and she had a purpose. She wasn't going to let her family take that away. The community center was a modest brick building tucked between a bookstore and a cafe, its windows adorned with rainbow flags that fluttered in the morning breeze. Emily's heart pounded as she and Sarah approached, the weight of the unknown pressing down on her. She'd never been here before. Never had to seek out a place like this. But now, it was her only hope. Inside, the air was warm, filled with the smell of coffee and the soft hum of conversation. A woman at the front desk looked up, her smile welcoming but cautious. "Can I help you?" she asked. Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady. "We need to talk to someone about legal resources. My girlfriend's family is causing problems." The woman's expression softened, and she nodded. "I'm Mia. Let's get you to a private room. We've got a lawyer who volunteers here. Her name's Rachel. She's good with cases like this." Emily felt a rush of gratitude, mixed with fear. A lawyer sounded serious, official, like the situation was even bigger than she'd realized. She followed Mia and Sarah down a hallway, passing posters about support groups and pride events. For the first time, she felt a flicker of belonging, like maybe she wasn't as alone as she'd thought. Rachel was in her 30s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She listened as Emily recounted the night, her parents' reaction, the church, the police, the threat of a psychiatric evaluation. When Emily finished, Rachel leaned back, her expression grim but determined. "They're trying to use a mental health angle to control you," Rachel said. "It's not uncommon in cases like this, especially with religious families. But you're 21, legally an adult. They can't force you into anything unless they can prove you're a danger to yourself or others. And from what you've told me, they don't have a case." Emily's shoulders relaxed slightly, but the fear didn't leave. What if they lie? They've got the church. The pastor people will believe them. Rachel nodded. "They might try, but we can fight it. We'll document everything, your side of the story, any threats they've made. I can also file a restraining order if they keep harassing you." A restraining order? Emily's voice wavered. The idea of legally cutting off her family felt like a knife to the chest, even after everything they'd done. "It's just an option," Rachel said gently. "For now, let's focus on keeping you safe. You can stay at our shelter here if you need to, and we'll help you get back on your feet." Sarah squeezed Emily's hand under the table, her presence a quiet reassurance. "What about her stuff?" Sarah asked. "Her parents took her phone, her wallet, everything." "We can demand they return your personal property," Rachel said. "If they refuse, we can escalate it legally. But first, we need to make sure they can't find you. Do you have somewhere to stay besides Sarah's apartment?" Emily hesitated. "Not really. I don't have anyone else." "You do now," Mia said from the doorway, where she'd been listening. "You can stay with me if you need to. My place isn't big, but it's safe." Tears pricked Emily's eyes. These people strangers were offering her more kindness than her own family had. She nodded, unable to speak, and Sarah pulled her into a side hug. Rachel handed Emily a card with her contact information. "Call me if anything happens. We'll start building your case today. And Emily, you're not alone in this. We've got your back." As they left the center, Emily felt a strange mix of relief and dread. She had allies now, people who believed in her. But the fight was far from over. Her parents weren't going to let this go, and the thought of facing them again made her stomach churn. That afternoon, Sarah and Emily went to Mia's apartment, a cozy space filled with art and books. Mia was warm and welcoming, her own story of family rejection mirroring Emily's in ways that made her feel less alone. They spent the day planning, gathering documents, writing down everything Emily could remember about the night before. Sarah stayed by her side, her quiet strength keeping Emily grounded. But that evening, As they sat around Mia's kitchen table, Sarah's phone buzzed again. Another text from Mark. They're serious. They're talking to a lawyer. Please, just talk to them. Emily's heart sank. She'd hoped Mark might come around, might see her side. But he was still their messenger. Sarah typed a quick reply. She's safe. Leave her alone. They're not going to stop, Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. Then we don't stop either, Sarah said fiercely. We fight until they back down. Emily nodded, drawing strength from Sarah's resolve. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore, she was fighting for them, for the life they wanted. And no matter what her family threw at her, she wasn't going to let them win. Days turned into weeks, and Emily settled into a fragile new normal at Mia's apartment. The community center became her lifeline, a place where she could breathe without fear of judgment. Rachel worked tirelessly on her case, gathering evidence and preparing for whatever her parents might throw at her. But the threat of their actions hung over her like a dark cloud, a constant reminder that her fight wasn't over. Sarah was her rock, spending every free moment with her, helping her navigate the legal maze. They'd steal moments of joy when they cootled late-night talks, quiet walks by the lake, stolen kisses that felt like defiance. But Emily couldn't shake the fear that her parents were still out there, plotting to drag her back into their world. One morning, Rachel called with news. Your parents have filed a petition for a mental health evaluation, she said, her voice calm but serious. They're claiming you're unstable and need to be placed under their guardianship. Emily's heart stopped. Guardianship. The word felt like a cage, a way to strip her of her freedom, her identity. Can they do that? She asked, her voice trembling. Not easily, Rachel said. They'd need strong evidence, and they don't have it. We're going to counter this with a restraining order and a formal demand for your belongings. But Emily, you need to be ready. This might go to court. Court. The word sent a chill down her spine. She imagined facing her parents in a courtroom, their eyes cold, their words twisting her truth. But she thought of Sarah, of Mia, of the community center, and something inside her hardened. She wasn't the scared girl who'd been thrown out into the blizzard anymore. She was stronger now, and she had people who believed in her. The hearing was set for a month later, and Emily spent every day preparing. Rachel coached her on what to say, how to present herself. Sarah and Mia helped her find a part-time job at a local bookstore, giving her a sense of purpose and independence. Slowly, she started to rebuild, piece by piece, the life her parents had tried to take away. The day of the hearing arrived, crisp and clear. The snow long melted from Burlington's streets. Emily stood outside the courthouse, Sarah's hand in hers, Rachel by her side. She was terrified, but she was ready. Inside, her parents sat with their lawyer, their faces stern, their eyes avoiding hers. Mark was there too, his expression unreadable. The judge listened as Rachel presented Emily's case: her independence, her stability, her right to live her life. Emily spoke, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest, telling the truth of that night, of her parents' rejection, of their attempt to control her. She talked about Sarah, about the love that had given her the strength to keep going. Her parents' lawyer argued that Emily was confused, that her lifestyle was a sign of mental instability. But Rachel was relentless, dismantling their claims with evidence and witnesses from the community center. The judge's face remained impassive, but Emily saw a flicker of empathy in her eyes. When the ruling came, it was swift. The petition for guardianship was denied. The restraining order was granted. Emily's parents were ordered to return her belongings, and to have no contact with her unless she initiated it. The gavel fell, and Emily felt like she could breathe again. Outside the courthouse, Sarah pulled her into a hug, tears streaming down both their faces. "You did it," Sarah whispered. "You're free." Emily nodded, her heart full. Free. The word felt real for the first time. She thought of the blizzard, of the church, of the long nights spent wondering if she'd ever find her place. She had now. With Sarah. With Mia. With the community that had become her family. As they walked away from the courthouse, hand in hand, Emily felt the weight of the past lifting. Her parents might never accept her, but she didn't need their approval anymore. She had love. She had strength. And she had a future worth fighting for. And in that moment, under the clear Vermont sky, she knew she'd won not just the case, but the right to be herself, unapologetically,